The absolute despicable cheek of that heartless clown Prince Harry to go on a false tour of Colombia and then try and blame the recent unrest in the UK on social media disinformation. What the hell does he know about the very real struggles facing the people of the UK? His subjects, who he ditched for a life of woke misery with that cretinous family destroyer. I'll tell you what, nothing. Absolutely nothing. So to suggest for his own pathetic political purposes it was a few rogue tweets that revealed the very real discontent the English feel about the deteriorating shape of our country is offensive and tone deaf. But that's Harry, isn't it? Watch.
Y hace aproximadamente 10 años se podía decir que lo que estaba en el mundo digital se quedaba allí, pero hoy en día no es el caso. No es el caso que lo que pasa en el mundo digital siga ahí, porque en cuestión de minutos o horas se pasa a las calles. Y me preocupa. Yo creo que nos hace a todos muy tristes ver que hay personas que son...
Sorry about the translator, but what he said there was what happens online in a matter of minutes, hours, now transfers to the streets. It worries me to see people acting on information that isn't true. So this has now become a pervasive narrative designed to dismiss the collapse of the social fabric of the UK. And as a result, Elon Musk and X have become the fall guys. But to hear a lecture about fake news from Prince Harry is like asking Dylan Mulvaney to lecture us on what it means to be a woman. The MSM, though, are buying into his ridiculous calls, like how he wants the public to be able to spot fake news.
Prince Harry suggested education could help the public spot fake news.
People are scared and uncertain, and I think one of the solutions to that is education and awareness, because it's becoming harder and harder to stem the flow from the source, and therefore really it comes down to all of us to be able to spot the true from the fake.
The true from the fake? Is this guy a psychopath? All you and your wife have done for the past 4 years is spread fake news. You've also allowed the biggest gang of internet trolls in history, the Sussex Squad, to harass and bully completely innocent folk like Catherine, the Princess of Wales, even when she was suffering from cancer. But of course, we're meant to believe that it's Meghan who is the real victim here.
La niñez, la juventud y sus padres de familia.
Thank you for the question, and thank you all so much for being here tonight and taking so much of your time to listen to these panels. I hope you feel as inspired as I do, and I think that leads right into your question, which is part of our goal when my husband and I founded the R12 Foundation and had our own lived experience, which a lot of you may have witnessed in terms of what online harms can look like. We knew that in finding a solution, and as my husband often refers to, the root cause, that has to start with people that have a level of digital literacy that they are living in and out every day. Now, whether that's by choice or because it's being pushed to them so constantly, they become experts in this field.
How about the online harms, Meghan, that you caused senior members of the royal family for falsely accusing them of racism? But Meghan sees herself as some sort of role model, of course.
Maybe your grandmother used to say it too also. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. But what's happened? The digital age has almost created a culture where if you don't have anything cruel to say, don't say anything at all. And that is fundamentally changing how we move through the world, how we connect with each other. And I think, as we continue with this work, we continue learning and investing and grant giving to young adults who can be change makers and are being change makers in this space. A lot of it also is how we as adults role model that behavior, how we role model offline and certainly how we role model online. As parents, we have that responsibility. As global citizens, we have that responsibility. But as digital citizens, we have that responsibility to model how we want our children to be raised in the world in which we want them to be raised in, which now includes the digital world. It's not going away, so it's how we can use what we know and continue to push the envelope to keep all of us safer, specifically our children.
Okay, I'm going to translate that Californian woke mumbo jumbo for you. Harry and Meghan believe in censorship, like two-tier Keir Starmer, rather than allow us plebs to have an open and honest discussion. They think that the solution is to shut us up, to shut down debate, to pretend the issues are not happening. Well, guess what? It's not going to work because we see through your sick agenda. And you must be called out for it. As Lord Frost wrote today in the Daily Telegraph, we can no longer say that Britain is a free country. Laws criminalising certain opinions are now having a chilling effect on freedom of expression in the UK. And Starmer himself was ratioed spectacularly when he posted on X, on the anniversary of VJ Day, we remember the sacrifices our veterans and their families made to protect Britain and defend our freedom. Freedom. How dare you care? You're an authoritarian, locking up English folk for Facebook and X posts. You have taken away the freedom our veterans fought for within just 4 weeks. Shame on you. Javier Milei, the freedom-fighting Argentinian president, has even called out what's happening to the UK.
Desde que los
Now, I'm
socialistas
going to
llegaron al
translate
poder,
for you here.
están metiendo presa a la
Look at
gente por
England.
postear en redes
Since the
sociales.
socialists
Bueno, a
came
los
to
periodistas de acá
power,
también les gustaría
they are putting
porque,
people in
digamos,
jail
no les gusta
for
que
posting
hayan
on
perdido
social
el monopolio del
networks.
micrófono y poder utilizar esa herramienta para extorsionar y ensuciar, calumniar sin costo alguno. Las redes sociales les pasan facturas y no les gustan. Dejen de buscar fantasmas. Están recibiendo lo mismo que hicieron, pero nada más que la gente lo hace orgánicamente porque se dio cuenta que son unos delincuentes desde que los...
And they are. Milei is right. The good thing is that I know ordinary folk are with me on this. There has been an outpouring of outrage and upset after I told you the story yesterday of Julie Sweeney, the 53-year-old from Kidsgrove who lived a quiet, sheltered life in Cheshire and as the primary caregiver to her ill husband, is now serving 15 months behind bars after she posted an inappropriate message which she then tried to delete within a minute to a community Facebook group with 5,000 members speaking in general terms about blowing up a mosque, something she quickly apologised for. Julie had never been in trouble with the law during a flawless life, but the judge, Stephen Everett, the recorder of Chester, chastised her by saying you should have been looking at the news media with horror, like every right-minded person. Instead, you chose to take part in stirring up hatred, so-called keyboard warriors, like you must learn. Well, today, Julie's husband of 29 years, who will now not be looked after, has spoken out. Speaking to the Daily Telegraph while breaking down in tears, he said 3 police cars turned up. There were 3 officers. What's that about? It's too big a force for what it was. It's just crazy. Then speaking of his own life, he said, it's a big loss. She's my right arm. It does anger you. It's over the top, well over the top. It's difficult. It's hard to come to terms with. She just got angry on the night because we watched the news item. It wound her up because of what had happened to the 3 girls. She's not that sort of person. We've got a neighbour next door who is Asian and he knows Julie is not a racist. We've got 3 granddaughters. It upset her, it wound her up. She just literally had an emotional breakdown. and she's now in jail for 15 months, while career criminals with more than 100 convictions get a slap on the wrist instead of jail time. Something is very wrong in the UK. I know you can see it. And the idea that Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, and two-tier Keir will change anything by cracking down on what they decry as misinformation is as deluded as it is offensive. But now, it's time for today's Uncancelled interview. And making his Outspoken debut, I am delighted to be joined by the entrepreneur, author, philanthropist, and host of the brilliant Disruptors podcast. I have appeared on it myself, and I highly recommend you go and check out that episode at some point. A free speech champion who regularly platforms everyone from Katie Hopkins, Nigel Farage, and Andrew Tate, Rob Moore. Rob, so great to have you on the show.
Dan, thanks for having me on.
And Rob, obviously as a free speech champion, there's so much to talk about at the moment. But can I get your reaction first to Harry and Meghan, and specifically the Duke, trying to blame what happened in Southport on social media disinformation?
Yeah, I was shocked. I mean, first off, I'm wondering, why are they doing this tour? And
yes, aren't we all? Aren't we all?
Who's funding the tour and their expensive security detail? So those things came to mind. And yeah, it feels like 1984, where a few people speaking out candidly about what's going on in the world are being blamed for riots that have nothing to do with, in my opinion, what's being said on social media. It has everything to do with how angry the public are, and have been probably for more than 5 years. And no one seems to be talking about all the things that have led to the riots. And things were going to break in the end. And I don't have any clue how Harry can blame a few people posting on social media. I don't get it. I mean, I even saw Julie Sweeney's post, and whilst it was not a nice post, it wasn't inciting violence, in my opinion. And it may have been in a private group, Dan, you know, and so can we not now message our friend on WhatsApp?
Well, indeed.
Is that now public?
Apparently there were 5,000 members in the group. One of them went to the police. The shocking thing is that Julie and her poor husband were trying to delete the post after 1 minute. As the husband said, Rob, she was having an emotional breakdown. She'd seen what had happened to the 3 girls in Southport. She had 3 grandchildren herself. But she has been made an example of, let's be honest, because we're currently seeing rapists and paedophiles walk free, but posting on Facebook when you have never had any trouble with the law in the past can get you to go to jail for 15 months. Why is Harry not speaking out against that? Surely that is the sort of injustice that he should care about. But actually, Rob, if it's a white working class person, he doesn't seem to give a damn.
Yeah, it feels to me like they want to make an example out of a few relatively innocent,
yes,
maybe white people, to scare us all into saying nothing. And I refuse to do that, Dan, just like you refuse to do that.
Are you scared though, Rob? Because I have spoken to normal folk this week, but also high profile folk, politicians, journalists, columnists, commentators, who genuinely believe that there's a situation where the police could come knocking on their door for posts about the news.
Well, honestly, Dan, I have some fear of speaking out, but I'm way more scared of saying nothing and how much power and control will end up wielding over to them. That scares me even more.
Yeah, indeed. And of course, your podcast, which we're going to be talking about later in the show, has always platformed some of the most controversial people in the UK. And my view is that daylight is the best disinfectant. We've got to hear from these voices, whether you agree with them or not. And I also mean that, by the way, when we're talking about folk from the hard left. This is not a political thing for me. You don't see me trying to shut down Owen Jones or Novara Media. And when it comes to Harry and Meghan, what I really feel this is about, Rob, is that actually what they want to do is stop criticism. And what they do is they try and put criticism in the same category as misinformation by calling it trolling or harm, online harms. Whereas actually, they just don't want people sometimes spitting facts about their poor behaviour, which we all have a right to do.
Yeah, well, didn't I watch something on Oprah with Harry and Meghan criticising Harry openly and publicly criticising his father, the future king, threw his own father and the Queen under the bus publicly in front of the world? Why is there this double standard where they seem to feel that it's because of their position they can criticise an institution, a family, a nation, but as soon as anyone says anything against them, it's, I don't know. Is it racism? Is it? I don't know.
They often say it is. And look, if you look at the footage that we're showing on screen now, I actually want to be really honest about this, Rob. This is propaganda footage. And I'm showing it to you, but I'm giving you that disclaimer. And if you look at the mainstream media, Rob, over the past 24 hours, from GB News to the British Bashing Corporation, none of them have admitted that this is propaganda. And the reason that I describe it as propaganda is because that is footage filmed and released by their own Archewell Foundation. So let's just be honest about it. Harry and Meghan don't believe in a free press. They do not want people to cover them critically. They're absolutely happy if you're from Harper's Bazaar and you're going to fawn over them and say that everything that they do is brilliant. But if you're someone like me who's going to call them out for their hypocrisy and treatment of the royal family, and also just point out when they're telling downright lies, which happens a lot, then you're far right and you're part of the disinformation crew and you should be banned. They actually want to silence their critics, and they do not see, Rob, that makes them as bad as communist regimes or dictatorships.
Well, I mean, this is what the far left do. That is what they do under the guise of kindness and, you know, speaking. What was it she said about if you haven't got anything nice to say, then don't say it. This is what they do. You know, it's a bomb wrapped up in a bow. I don't like it. I think it's hypocrisy. I will fight to the death for free speech, even with people I disagree with. Like, yes, I disagree with much of the things that Harry and Meghan have said and done, but I will always uphold their right to say it. But I don't know. I also wonder, and this is an opinion, Dan, it's not a fact, but I just wonder if their relevance is dying a bit. You know, what is it? Fear screams loudest when it's dying. And yeah. I think some of these things are very, very clutchy at straws for, you know, a bit of fame and maybe a bit of money.
I think you're right. And Rob, look, we're not body language experts, right? But I've obviously covered this couple for a very long time and speak to very good contacts who are close to the couple. They're not happy, actually. And if you look at Harry's face during so much of this tour, he's like a broken man. Look at that. At one point, Rob, he actually tried to sort of say something and Meghan cut him off and he just looks broken. So they can go on with the farce as long as they want. He's obviously trapped. It's not a bad life to be trapped in, is it? With 2 lovely kids and 16 toilets in Montecito. But I do think that he feels very unfulfilled and quite a unhappy guy these days, which was obviously never what he used to be. So it's very sad, actually. First, though, what's so important about being independent is that I'm only ever going to tell you about products that I use and truly believe in, because I want things that will improve your life. So I'm delighted to talk to you about Verso. As you know, I'm in my 40s now, really focused on staying healthy, prioritizing my health, trying to stay fit, doing the 16-8 fast, all of the things that you're meant to do. But it will only get you so far. Scientists like David Sinclair have proven that we can now reverse aging with interventions that go beyond healthy habits. So I wanted a product I knew would enhance everything I was doing, but one backed up with solid evidence. Introducing Cell Being by Verso. It has scientifically proven ingredients that fight the effects of aging by increasing NAD+ levels, which is the stuff that powers every cell in your body. I've been taking this product now for a long time, right at the start of my day. It's been transformative for me. Fasting is way easier. My fat is down and I'm no longer as hungry. And apparently that is due to the blood sugar regulating effects in the product, which lead to fewer cravings. I'm sleeping better too, wake up with more energy and feeling happier. This product has taken years off me. And Verso publishes third-party testing from each batch produced to guarantee you are getting what you paid for. Now, if you head today to buy.ver.so/outspoken, you will save 15% on your first order. All you need to do is use the coupon code OUTSPOKEN. I'm put the link in the YouTube and Rumble description, but to repeat, that is buy.ver.so/outspoken. Use the coupon code OUTSPOKEN.
Yeah, I'm no expert. I don't know behind the scenes of their life, but he seems lost. He seems very lost. I don't know what the direction of his life is, what the vision of his life is, what good does he want to do in the world? None of it, there doesn't seem to be any direction or vision from him.
No, absolutely not. What do you make, Rob, though, of them being paid for by a government like Colombia, which is a poor country, in order for them to be used as political pawns by a government which is actually really corrupt? That feels concerning to me too.
Yeah, well, I've never enjoyed their hypocrisy of, their, let's be inclusive, let's speak about kindness, and then being paid tens or I don't know what Netflix paid them. I don't know what Spotify paid them. And they didn't really put out any content. So it feels disingenuous how they're not, if they just said, look, we're a power couple and we're here to do business and this is our message and we want to earn loads of money, I'd kind of respect them a bit more.
Yeah, exactly. Be honest about what your mission is and what your goal is, because it's not altruistic. The only cause they seem to care about at all is actually shutting down freedom of speech online and shutting down a free press, which is very bizarre, isn't it? That's a very bizarre cause for royals to take on. When you look at Charles, I may not agree with him, but he clearly has environmental causes. Diana had landmines and bulimia and homelessness and HIV/AIDS. William has taken on most of those causes from his mother and gone one step further. And of course, Catherine, we know, is deeply passionate about early childhood and the plight of young children. They are all really important causes. This feels like a cause for the elites. It's like, let's shut down the plebs on social media. Let's shut down the media that doesn't agree with us. It's just a very bizarre thing to decide that is going to be your mission in life. Aligning with Steve Coogan and Hugh Grant, two millionaires who aren't happy about the fact that when they're naughty in their private life, some newspapers wrote about it. It just feels like a pathetic waste of what was a platform, Rob, that you couldn't pay for. They had the opportunity, they had a genuine opportunity to change the world. And instead they have focused on a very narrow idea of victimhood. I think it's a tragedy, actually, but it's all their own fault. And we saw it happen, didn't we, with the Duke of Windsor and Wallace Simpson. Sometimes a royal can be corrupted by a bad woman.
definitely I smell insecurity. I've had my fair share of online criticism, and generally what keeps you focused in the right direction is having a meaningful mission and a cause bigger than yourself. And if you're just trying to shut everyone down who says something about you, that feels like an insecure void that they're trying to fill, which they'll never be able to fill because they'll never be able to silence everyone. They could have produced the best podcast on Spotify. They produced a few, lukewarm episodes and got paid tens of millions to do it. It was an outrage. Any other company, if they'd have got paid tens of millions to produce a few episodes, would have been sued. The Netflix, again, they could have had an amazing Netflix series. If you look at what the Furies, they did a brilliant Netflix series and everyone wanted more. And they had this chance to produce amazing content and become very rich. And it seems like the public's opinion is really important to them. And they could have shown themselves, like the Beckhams showed themselves quite well by being a bit more honest and a bit more real and sharing some of your flaws. Like, when Posh Spice was pretending not to be posh, but David called her out. They had such the chance to be the talk of everything, which seems like what they wanted. And just because they didn't want anyone to say anything not very nice about them, they seem to have gone so far to the left that they're quite happy for anyone to be imprisoned just for saying something they don't like, which is 1984. If you're prepared to let someone go to prison for saying something you don't agree with, you are implicit. And this is I know you said earlier, Dan, am I scared? I'm more scared of not speaking out, but it's a close second scared of speaking out, because you can lose your whole livelihood. You can lose your whole ability to earn, and not just these famous people, like Russell Brand and people like that, who no one had sympathy for, but he lost a lot of his earning capacity. But normal, ordinary people, normal content creators can lose their ability to earn just like that, just for speaking an opinion. And that is wrong.
It is. I mean, we've just shown actually on screen some of the ordinary folk, good, honest English people who've been caught up in this madness. And because of Slippery Starmer wanting to make a political point, they have lost everything, just like you described, Rob. So David Spring, who was a retired 61-year-old former train driver from Sutton, never been in trouble with the law. He yelled out at this protest, got a bit carried away and said to the police, "Who the F is Allah?" And he's carted off, arrested, locked up, jailed. Then there's Lee Joseph Dunn, the worker from Sellafield, who made some apparently inappropriate posts. I read them. They seem to me to be political posts, a little bit edgy, but I'm a little bit edgy sometimes. And then Lucy Connolly, she's the wife of the Conservative politician, Rob, and she remains behind bars on remand because of her social media posts, which is an indignity usually reserved for violent criminals. So the way that this government has cracked down so quickly on dissent, I think is truly terrifying. I mean, it's only been 5 weeks. And the thing that makes me sick, Rob, is where are the human rights lawyers? Where are the people speaking up for free speech? They are nowhere.
So I had a little tried to look into the law. And it's complicated, of course, because it always is. But yes, the police can also arrest protesters if they suspect that they have intentionally or recklessly caused a public nuisance. So basically, they can arrest you for anything. Mm-hmm. That sounds to me like if I want to stand here and be a nuisance, then they can arrest me. And I don't know, that to me, here's the irony, it's probably going to create more riots. I mean, it makes me angry. I don't think they're going to achieve what they want, which is clearly Orwellian control. And I think people will get more and more angry. Don't think it'll stop the riots. I think they'll get worse. I think this country is as bad as it's been since I've been alive. I don't like it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will agree with you. I mean, look, I would say it stopped the riots in the short term. And by the way, Rob, I'm really consistent on this. I deplore all violence, especially against the police. I always have. But remember, I was doing it during the Black Lives Matter riots. I was doing it during the pro-Hamas demonstrations. I was doing it for Just Stop Oil, Insulate Britain, Extinction Rebellion. So I am consistent in my position. My fury is that people like Starmer are not consistent at all. He was taking the knee, wasn't he? Just days after we saw those Black Lives Matter riots. So there is total inconsistency from folk on the left when it comes to what is apparently acceptable, and it depends on what your public position is.
Yeah, and can you peacefully protest anymore, Dan? That's my big worry.
Yeah.
Because it like public
and
nuisance.
they've been infiltrated. Well, exactly. And also the thing that the mainstream media never talks about, but Andy No, who I've had on the show, really brilliant guy who exposed Antifa in the US, knows that actually lots of these quote unquote, because I don't even believe in the term, far right riots are infiltrated by the far left and by Antifa because they want them to become violent. So it's really difficult now. It is really difficult now. And actually later on in the show, I'm going to show you and get you to react to what Douglas Murray thinks ordinary Brits should be doing about this. But I acknowledge that it is hard. What's interesting to me, though, Rob, from a political point of view, and obviously you're close with Nigel Farage. You've had him on your podcast for a long time, including at periods when he was spawned by the mainstream media. But he has been the political beneficiary of all of this, Rob. The Labour Party have slumped 6 points. 6 points in 5 weeks. That is extraordinary. But now Reform UK, Rob, the official opposition, effectively surging 5 points. And of course, that comes at a time when the mainstream media and the political elite have actually been trying to blame Nigel Farage for the riots. So what do you make of the surge of Reform UK?
Well, the irony first, Dan, is whenever anyone, let's say on the far left, tries to cancel someone they perceive to be on the far right, all they end up doing is making them more popular. Yes. So, I spoke to Nigel a few days ago on the phone and he said, "Oh, Rob, I'm public enemy number one at the moment because they're blaming me for the riots," which is, of course, outrageous. You can't blame Nigel Farage for the riots. You blame an angry populace, an angry Britain. It's ridiculous that you can blame anyone for these riots. But so, he was a bit perturbed, but now look at his ratings go up. Andrew Tate, how many times have they tried to cancel him? He's bigger than some religious figures now. So the irony is they just make them even bigger. Now, what's my take on Nigel and his rise in popularity? Well, he's pretty much, in my opinion, the only major politician, with a personality, who can speak very well, and that helps. I think that he has benefited from everyone being so over conservative and everyone knowing that Labour were going to come in and promise to not raise any taxes, and of course all taxes were going to go up. So I personally like the fact that it's not just two parties and no one else really getting a chance. And he's quite disruptive, and I like disruptors on my show, Dan.
I can tell.
Yeah. And
can he be Prime Minister? Do you think he could be Prime Minister in 2029?
There's a lot of things that have to happen, but, knowing him reasonably well, I said about a year ago, I think that I said before he went on In the Jungle,
I'm a Celebrity,
I said, I think Nigel Farage will be Prime Minister one day. And, there's a major palpable unrest. I've said since lockdown, there's a revolution coming. And, in revolutions, you get major change and major overhaul. So, you look at it now and you think, oh, it's possibly not likely. A lot of things have got to move and change. But I don't know how much more angry the public need to get before we've just had enough. And then he'll be in some ways, he could be the beneficiary because he's just the only one that's not Labour or Conservative.
I completely agree. People will say I'm crazy, but I believe that by 2029, Marine Le Pen will be the president of France and that Nigel Farage will be the prime minister of the UK. Because the way that society is going in both countries proves that revolution now needs to be the option. I think you're completely right to use that word. Now, thank God, Rob, our friends in America are actually realizing what's happening with our terrible free speech issues. I find it in some ways embarrassing that we're having to turn to American politicians and American broadcasters to speak up for us, but that's how I feel because none of the British establishment or the British mainstream media is. So here's Ted Cruz, the US senator, talking about the fact that he now feels like the Magna Carta is on fire.
Free speech is under assault in the United Kingdom. They are sentencing people to jail for social media posts. It is tragic. The Magna Carta is on fire. And the question is this coming to America? The United Kingdom is threatening to go after Americans, including Elon Musk, who they're targeting directly, and try to prosecute them for free speech. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz embrace the same radical views.
He's got a point, doesn't he?
Oh, look, I just think thank goodness for Elon Musk. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, me too.
If it weren't for X, then many of these very left social media channels would have us under complete control. Dan, I don't know if you know this, but if I use the word Labour in my Facebook Lives or posts, I can't give them any boosts or commercialize them in any way. If you Google Donald, it comes up duck. President Donald, it comes up President Donald Duck. And Kamala Harris comes up when you search Donald Trump on Google. And of course, it's Elon Musk who's saying, who's the main donor? Oh, it's Alphabet. Who owns Alphabet? Google. And if it wasn't for Elon Musk really resisting, that it was a very bold move to, I don't know if we're watershed here, Dan, so I'll be respectful. But what he said about Disney pulling the advertising, he was very rage against the machine. Don't bribe me. If you're going to pull your billions, then leave.
Then bye-bye.
Yeah, he said a few other words.
In more colourful terms.
It was very rock and roll.
But we needed that because we need the Overton window to shift because you're right. Facebook, because they felt like they were blamed for the election of Trump in 2016, they went so hard the other way. They actually deplore people posting about news now. And if you dare to talk about anything even slightly controversial, like Richard Dawkins ridiculously banned or had his post removed for talking about the biology of the boxer who won gold, the male boxer who won gold in the female category at the Olympics. So Facebook, sadly, is the home of censorship now. What I hope is that Elon Musk, by standing firm, can make YouTube be brave, can make Google be brave, but it is worrying. And certainly there looks to be massive interference when it comes to those search results, and also the way that AI is manipulated to make political points too, Rob.
Well, I've had many of my posts deleted, and I've actually had my TikTok channel banned, and that's just AI picking up phrases. Yeah. So you can never get to a human.
TikTok is insane. It is the home of censorship. And don't you find it so ironic, Rob? This is the Chinese own app, yet they're the home of woke liberal censorship in the Western world. It's nuts, utterly nuts. I've sort of given up on TikTok. I tried a little bit, but actually I posted about Donald Trump and the assassination and they removed it. And I just thought, nah, I don't know if this is the place for me.
Yeah. Dan, there's a little saying, which is follow the money. And, there's some seriously big donors and advertisers and funds of, some of these massive media channels. I loved social media initially because it disrupted mainstream media, and it was decentralized, personalized. You could have your own opinion, you could build your own little sort of media mini empire. It connected people. But now all that's happened is social media has just become the new mainstream media because it's just controlled by money. I mean, if you go back and look at, the big funds, like, BlackRock, for example,
yes.
They own a lot of these big media platforms. So follow the money.
Very, very good point. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please do subscribe if you want lots more clips and interviews like that. Plus, if you want to watch our totally uncensored after show, then visit www.outspoken.live.